Welcome to the deep dive. If you're sitting there wondering, how do I actually stack up financially against the typical person in the UK? Well, you are definitely in the right place today.
Huh?
We're taking a huge pile of research, really focused on UK wealth accumulation by age, and basically giving you the shortcut.
Yeah, cutting through the noise.
Exactly. Our mission today is to really understand the mechanics of wealth. We want to move beyond those simple, sometimes frustrating headlines you see everywhere and break down exactly what assets matter, how they change over a lifetime. This is less about high finance, maybe, and more about getting that knowledge quickly but thoroughly on, well, the typical Briton's financial journey.
And we absolutely cannot start this conversation without establishing, I think, the most critical piece of context here.
Okay.
Because if you miss this first point, you'll look at every chart, every graph, and probably feel instantly disheartened. It's crucial.
Right. What is it?
We have to talk about how wealth is measured.
Okay. Here we go. The essential, but let's be honest, sometimes confusing statistical bit. Lay it on us.
Well, it doesn't have to be confusing. It's actually about perspective.
Yeah.
See, when people talk about average UK wealth, they almost always use the mean average.
Right, the mean. Add everything up, divide by the number of people. Simple enough.
Simple, yes, but the shortcoming of the mean average is that it's heavily, fundamentally, skewed by the outliers.
Is the outliers meaning?
Specifically, the multimillionaires and, the billionaires at the very top.
Right, so you put a handful of people who own like half the country's wealth into the data set.
Exactly.
And suddenly the average person looks way, way wealthier than they actually are.
Precisely. And that's what makes the typical person, someone who's saving diligently, maybe feeling okay, look at the numbers and feel like a complete financial failure. It's demoralizing.
Yeah, I can see that. So what's the alternative?
So this analysis, and frankly common sense, argues that to get a truly accurate view of typical wealth, the experience of the person smack bang in the middle, we absolutely must use the median average.
The median. So if you lined everyone up by wealth, it's the person literally in the middle of the line.
Exactly that. That person's wealth is the median. And understanding that shift from mean to median, well, that's the crucial aha moment for anyone trying to gain knowledge quickly about where they genuinely stand financially.
Okay.
We're focusing on the reality for, say, the middle class, not the kind of fantasy world inhabited by the top 1%.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay.
Let's unpack this then, keeping that critical median benchmark firmly in mind. So we're moving from how we measure wealth to the raw material of wealth itself. The sources break down UK wealth into 4 distinct categories, surprisingly separate sometimes.
Yes, and these are really the 4 pillars that determine your overall financial health. Ignore any one of them. Well, you do so at your peril, really.
Right. Pillar number 1, physical wealth. What falls under this?
So physical wealth is simply the tangible stuff you own. Think cars, antiques maybe, jewelry, furniture, art, that kind of thing.
Got it. The things you can touch.
Pretty much. And what's quite fascinating here, according to the data, is that the growth in physical wealth seems to, well, it plateaus once households get past their early 30s.
Hang on, plateaus after the 30s. That feels a bit counterintuitive. Don't we just keep buying stuff?
Yeah.
I thought we were all becoming hoarders, accumulating things forever, especially as, disposable income might increase later in life.
Yeah, it seems odd at first glance, but it's less about debt and maybe more about utility and shared ownership. The source points to 2 main drivers for this plateau.
Okay.
First, there's the self-reporting bias. It's hard to accurately value a 5-year-old sofa, isn't
That's
it?
true. Or that dodgy antique inherited from Aunt Mildred.
Exactly. But perhaps more importantly, the period of massive accumulation, getting the basic necessities of adult life, like your first car, really furnishing a home, that's really concentrated in your 20s and early 30s.
Oh, okay. Setting up shop, basically.
Right. Once a household is established, physical wealth shifts. It moves from accumulation towards maintenance and replacement.
I see. So that distinction between stuff you accumulate for the first time versus stuff you just replace is the key. You're swapping out an old car for a new one, maybe not necessarily gaining a net new asset in the same way.
Precisely. The early years involve big ticket acquisition. Later years often involve big ticket depreciation and, replacement.
That makes the shift much clearer now.
Yeah.
Okay, but let's move on to what feels like the behemoth of UK wealth. Pillar 2, property wealth. This has got to be the largest asset category for most households, right?
For the vast majority, yes. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, especially those intergenerational comparisons, Well, property is where the story gets really complicated and, frankly, quite challenging for younger Britons today.
Yeah, you hear that all the time.
The source really highlights that achieving homeownership is significantly harder for younger generations compared to their parents' or grandparents' time. It's
Yeah.
like a perfect storm of, stagnant real wage growth combined with, frankly, exponential property value inflation in many areas.
So it's not just anecdotal frustration we hear down the pub. The data actually shows the path to getting keys to your own front door requires a much, much larger slice of your income than it ever did before.
Absolutely, no question. In this context, the struggle leads to a major, almost philosophical suggestion embedded within the
How
analysis
intriguing.
that modern homeowners, especially those grappling with, let's face it, eye-watering levels of debt to even get on the ladder, perhaps should view their houses primarily as shelter
Gotcha. Rather than,
rather than solely as an investment or, a guaranteed appreciating asset.
wow, okay, that's a massive psychological shift.
Yeah.
Because we are, institutionally trained in the UK to think of our house as our primary wealth building tool, right? Our retirement fund on rough and order, the engine for passing wealth down generations.
It is a huge shift. And the implication isn't just psychological. It suggests a required behavioral change, too.
How so?
Well, if shelter is the absolute priority, then perhaps the pressure to extract maximum investment value, through constant expensive renovations or moving every few years just to trade up, maybe that pressure should diminish. If the sheer cost of acquiring and maintaining that asset is pushing you towards financial instability in other areas of your life, perhaps its fundamental function providing secure shelter needs to take priority in your sort of mental accounting.
So maybe be more willing to accept a smaller home or stay put longer or choose a location that's less about investment potential and more about stability.
Exactly. It suggests maybe people should be more willing to make those trade-offs to maintain financial stability elsewhere. It's a profound shift in mindset, as you said, with real-world implications for how we spend, even on things like decorating and maintenance.
It encourages focusing on stability over pure speculation with your primary residence.
Interesting.
Okay, excellent point. Moving on then to Pillar 3, pension wealth. This feels like the long game. The deferred gratification category where the power of time is literally built into the calculations.
Absolutely. And this is perhaps the most important pillar for anyone aiming for genuine long-term financial security. It really raises an important question.
Which is?
If you're looking to build that long-term stability, where should you focus your contributions, especially when you're young and maybe funds are tight? The clear guidance from the source material is prioritize pension contributions.
Prioritize pensions. Why specifically?
Specifically because of the almost magical exponential power of compounding over time.
Compounding. It's often talked about as this abstract concept, but really is the financial secret weapon, isn't it? Time essentially does the heavy lifting for you.
It absolutely is. Time, in this context, is your single biggest financial lever. Just to visualize it for a moment. A pound contributed when you're, say, 25 has decades longer to grow and multiply. It requires significantly less effort, less actual cash saved from the earner later on, than a pound contributed when you're 45 or 55.
Yeah, the math is undeniable.
The psychological difficulty, of course, lies in convincing your 20-something self to sacrifice immediate spending, maybe that nicer holiday or car, for a reward that feels incredibly far away, maybe 40 years down the line.
It's the ultimate lesson in delayed gratification, isn't it? You contribute when you're young, even if it's just a little, and the simple passage of time performs this, well, mathematical miracle. I think we all wish we could go back to our younger self and just hammer that point home.
Don't we just? Pension contributions are fundamentally about maximizing the impact of time, which, unlike money, you can never, ever get back.
Very true. Which brings us neatly to our final pillar. Number 4, financial wealth. Now, what exactly does this cover?
So this is the stuff that saves your bacon when life throws an unexpected grenade at your checking account.
Right, the emergency fund.
Exactly. It's your liquid buffer. We're talking savings accounts, maybe some easily accessible investments, the immediate funds that prevent a drama turning into a catastrophe.
Gotcha. Cash or near cash.
Precisely. And this is where the sources highlight a critical and frankly often worrying gap for many individuals and households in the UK.
Oh, what kind of gap?
Well, Pension wealth might be locked away and hopefully growing slowly, and property wealth is tied up in bricks. Many people in the UK simply lack sufficient liquid financial buffers.
Ah, so not enough ready cash for emergencies.
Exactly. This type of savings has a very distinct purpose. It's not really about long-term accumulation like a pension or even property equity. It's purely about resilience, stability, shock absorption.
So if an unexpected expense hits, the car breaks down suddenly, the boiler goes kaput, or, the washing machine floods the kitchen.
Yep.
Many households don't actually have that accessible cash cushion ready to go without having to resort to, say, expensive credit card debt, or even worse, dipping into their long-term pension savings early, which is usually a terrible idea.
Precisely. Financial wealth is that firewall. It protects you against immediate financial disaster. It's distinct from the physical stuff you own, the property you live in, or the pension you hopefully won't touch for decades.
And the analysis shows this is a weak spot for many.
It underscores that having even 3 to 6 months of essential expenses readily available, liquidly available, is a goal many people haven't yet achieved. And that leaves them constantly vulnerable, constantly exposed to shocks.
Right. One unexpected bill away from serious trouble.
Pretty much. Now, if we try and connect all this to the bigger picture, what's really fascinating is how the speed of accumulation changes across these 4 different pillars over a typical lifetime.
That's a great way to look at it. They certainly don't all grow at the same time or at the same rate, do they?
Not at all. As we said, physical wealth tends to peak relatively early in the 30s. Property wealth, well, it might start slower because of those high entry barriers we discussed.
Yeah, saving that deposit takes forever.
Right. But once you're in and building equity, it represents potentially massive growth over the long term. But crucially, its liquidity is practically zero until you sell or downsize.
Can't pay the gas bill with a brick.
Exactly. Then you have pension wealth, which, thanks to compounding, grows exponentially over time, especially towards the end of your working life. And finally, financial wealth, but buffer it needs to be actively topped up and maintained throughout life as a defense mechanism. It never really becomes an accumulation engine in itself for most people.
So really understanding typical UK wealth means realizing you're not just one single number on some scale. You're actually a complex mix of these 4 things. Liquid stability, tangible goods, housing equity, or maybe the lack of it, and that deferred retirement income. You might be doing okay, maybe median in one pillar, but lagging significantly in another.
And that perspective allows you, the listener, to gain that knowledge quickly but also thoroughly about where you genuinely stand. It stops you comparing yourself apples to oranges against the headline mean average.
Right.
You're comparing your specific mix of assets, your 4-pillared, against the person actually in the middle, not the person who just sold a tech startup for millions in London. And that comparison is honest and much more useful for planning.
Okay, so to quickly recap the core insights from this deep dive. First, the absolute importance of using the median average, not the misleading mean, for any accurate personal comparison. Crucial takeaway.
Absolutely crucial.
And second, that typical UK wealth isn't just one thing. It's built on these specific, different dynamics across 4 key areas. Physical possessions, which tend to plateau after the 30s. Property, which the analysis encourages us to view increasingly as shelter first, assets second.
A big mental shift.
Pension wealth, which demands that early prioritization because of the power of compounding over time. And finally, financial wealth, that liquid buffer, where sadly we see a critical lack of essential savings for many.
Well summarized. And that brings us neatly back around to our final, maybe provocative thought for you to mull over. If we really take that suggestion seriously, that modern homeowners should perhaps view their house primarily as shelter, rather than solely as a speculative asset guaranteed to make them rich. Well, that completely changes how you might need to manage the other 3 pillars, doesn't it?
It really does. If your property isn't guaranteed to be your golden ticket, if it's mainly just keeping the rain off your head, you certainly can't rely on it solely to anchor your retirement in the same way previous generations might have.
Exactly my point. If the house is primarily secure shelter, not a guaranteed investment windfall, what long-term, perhaps non-negotiable adjustments does the average person, especially younger people, need to make in their other 3 wealth pillars?
You mean in their physical assets, their pension, and their financial buffer?
Yes. Does it mean, for instance, that younger generations need to find ways to drastically increase their pension contributions much earlier, precisely because they can no longer confidently bet on those huge housing windfalls later in life?
Potentially compensating for lower property gains with higher pension savings.
Potentially. Or does it mean they need much bigger financial buffers, more emergency cash, precisely because they might be carrying larger mortgages for longer periods, making them more vulnerable to income shocks?
Yeah.
That's the complex, very personal question you need to explore, looking at your own situation through the lens of these four pillars and that median perspective.
A great challenge to leave everyone with, reevaluating your own four pillars based on the median reality, not the headline fantasy. Thanks for diving deep with us today.
My pleasure.
We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.